Hello, I'm Ellen Redman, and I've been playing piccolo and flute with the Springfield Symphony since 1985. Recently, Principal Flutist and Bobo and I met over Zoom to give you a sneak peek into what it's like playing together in the flute section, using examples from recent SSO concerts. We also talked a little bit about what it's like being a musician during a pandemic and all the things we miss about playing with the SSO. I hope you enjoy it. Hi, Anne.
Ellen!
How are you?
Yay! It's so nice to see you.
So great to see you too. Oh my gosh, it's been so long.
It's way, way too long. It's
Yeah.
true. It is
How have
true.
you been? How's everybody?
Everybody's pretty good, plugging along. We're getting by. We're doing fine and adjusting and adapting like everybody. How about you?
Pretty much the same. We've been well, fortunately, and we're just chugging along and hoping for a little bit of relief down the pike here.
Yes, same. Very
So,
much so.
what have you been up to?
Well, teaching remotely mostly, learning much more about all of this than I ever sort of thought or wanted to learn. But actually, I feel like we're so lucky to have this technology, and it works remarkably well, actually, for teaching. So that's really fortunate since, of course, we're not playing at all.
Right.
Yeah, and then just kind of juggling everybody being home all the time, which is interesting. My kids are, around some of the time and doing remote school some weeks and in-person school, and Nick is teaching remotely, so it's been a juggle. How about you?
Yeah, same thing. The teaching's been all remote. And yes, for certain things, it's actually really good. One of the nice things about Zoom is that you can record so that the students can go back and listen if there's something in particular you're trying to teach them, and they can hear themselves too, as much as they don't like doing that. None of us do. Um, but it's been good. Although I do miss, the in-person teaching in three dimensions as opposed to two.
Oh, what a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Such a good way to put it. Not to mention playing with other people
Oh,
in real
yes.
life. Oh, miss it so much. So
I
much.
know. Now you've been doing some things with your quintet that you were
Yes,
telling me about before that sounded really interesting.
a little bit. And actually, one of our things did end up on the Homegrown series in December. So this is sort of the special project of Grace Shryock, the English horn player in Springfield Symphony. She has always wanted to put together a quintet to do educational programs for young students. And we started doing it actually in person last winter, and went into a couple of schools and did little quintet programs with stories, Peter and the Wolf mostly. But she had this incredible idea to put together remote learning packages for teachers. And we've done a few of them, and all of them have music and a story and all sorts of activities that she comes up with to go with them. It's really quite remarkable.
That's a great
Um,
idea.
it's amazing. It's really amazing. It takes a lot of time. It's definitely sort of a labor of love, but the final products are really cool. And what we've been doing is using this app called Acapella that lets you layer one part on top of the next. And so what happens is we break it down into little 8 or 16 bar, or sometimes even shorter sections, and you do each one at a time. And each person has to record separately. And then you end up with everybody all layered on top of one another. And then she takes that and puts it into iMovie and creates these kind of amazing things.
That's
Um,
remarkable. That's a lot of work too.
Oh my gosh, so much work. Yes, it's called the Storytime Quintet, and we have a page on Facebook if you want to check it
Awesome.
out. But
Check it
it
out.
has been though tedious and lonely. It's actually a very lonely thing to do.
It is.
Um, we all feel very proud once they're finished.
They're
It's like,
great.
oh, thank you.
No, they
Thanks.
really are.
Have you been getting
Well,
to do some playing? How are you managing with that?
yeah, well, it's again, it's very lonely, creating content, as they say.
Mm.
It's there's this radio silence after you do it. There's no reaction from playing for people, and you realize what a social activity being a musician is,
Hmm.
when all of a sudden you can't do it that way. I, I've learned a lot about technology. I've learned how to do a lot of things that I never thought I would learn to do, but that's been interesting. In my ensemble at the college, with my traditional Irish and Scottish music group, we put videos together, and I've learned how to do that and do some sound editing and that kind of thing, which is good. And yeah, just learning how to put yourself out there on via technology. Um,
Which is a hurdle. That's a hurdle to get over. Yes.
yeah, it
For
is.
for those of us of a certain generation, I think especially. Doesn't come so naturally to me anyway.
No, but it's been good also listening to myself, and sort of just taking a step back and going, well, maybe this area could use a little bit of work, and that area could use a little bit of work, and having the time to do it without the pressure of having to perform. So that's been one kind of good thing about
Yes,
this.
that's true. Look at you, so positive.
I try.
Uh,
Anyway, one of the things we wanted to talk to all of you about today is playing together in the Springfield Symphony in the flute section. And I feel so lucky to be playing with you, Anne. It's a pleasure. It's a privilege and a pleasure.
well,
Um,
likewise.
and we picked some excerpts of some music that features the two flutes, or flute and piccolo, together. And we wanted to share those with you and give you a little insight onto what we think about when we're playing those things. So I'm going to just share my screen now, and we're going to pull up an excerpt. Um,
I'm excited about this for everybody. I always sort of feel like people have more appreciation for something if they understand more about it, of course, right? It's like, everybody trying to bake their sourdough bread and learning how that maybe is not as easy as it looks. Or, I have a new appreciation for golfing having tried it, like things like that. So I think this is so cool to get to talk about, so many things go through our heads when we're playing.
exactly. So
So many things.
we've chosen two pieces of music: the Mendelssohn Italian Symphony, which we did a few years ago, and the Mahler Second Symphony, which we did, I think, just 2 seasons ago.
Sounds right.
Or last season, I don't know. It all runs together. Um, but anyway, I'll let you start. What do you want to say about this particular movement, Anne?
Yeah, so both of the pieces that we've chosen are really famous two flute or flute and piccolo excerpts. So those are the things that we have to play when we audition for orchestras. We spend huge amounts of time working on little bits of music in order to play them. And these are unique in that they're for two people. Normally if you're just auditioning for a seat, you play mostly stuff that's kind of one person. Um, so this first one is from Mendelssohn's Fourth Symphony, and this is the second movement, right? Yes, second movement. um, and what we have to think about in this one is in the very beginning, if you read music and can see from the score there, we both have, so I would be on that top line and Ellen would be on the second one. And I'm talking even at the very, very beginning where we're in unison, where we have the same exact notes. And with the rest of the orchestra as well, everybody's playing the same thing. So we have to think about our pitch and our blend and not using vibrato too much so that we can blend together well, making sure we really line up so many details like that, just even in that first measure. And then as we go to the next section where the two flutes really start, we're doing this thing you'll hear on the recording, which by the way was so nice to hear
Thank you.
our orchestra. I'm so excited you guys get to hear us play a little bit. We have to sort of take over this weaving line from the strings that's already happening, and we have to blend into it and sort of chameleon our way around it a little bit. And we do that with the rest of the orchestra, but then also between the two of us. So I know for me, when I'm playing this excerpt on the first part, on the principal part, I'm thinking a lot about which voice should be most important at which time. And it's not always me. In fact, it's often not me in this one, where they're, I don't know, can you move your cursor a couple bars to the right where you move? And yeah, exactly. So those moving notes, like Ellen is definitely going to bring those out more. Same thing there. Anytime one of us is moving and the other is staying on a held note, the moving note is what you want to bring out. So we're constantly adjusting our dynamic for that. Um,
I always think about when I'm doing those little moving things because Kevin will always look at me like bring it out more, you know? So
right, absolutely. And then trying to figure out our breathing too. So there are some places where we would breathe at the same time, and some places where we might want to cover up one another's breath to make it sound more seamless.
exactly.
Um,
And
yeah.
I find as a playing second flute that um, the thing for me is to the way it is often put is to play into your sound. So I don't want to be sounding like a completely separate flute player. I want it to sound as much like you, so it's of a piece, you know. Trying to match the vibrato, obviously the pitch and the tone color and all of that. And it's really fun to do that. I mean, it's because it's you kind of get to be a chameleon in a way. You know, can I do this? Can I match this person? Can I match that person? So playing second flute is often quite a lot of fun.
I totally agree. Well, it's one of my favorite things to do. And I mean, I was the second flutist in Springfield for a long time before being principal. I agree. And I actually think, Ellen, that like you are a master at that. And it's one of the reasons that we are so well matched, because we both appreciate that ability in another player, because
Yes.
it is what sort of serves the music the best. It's what really brings the music to life rather than it being, about the individual player on the stage.
Yes.
But
Agreed. What do you say we have a listen to this and
yes,
people can hear for themselves what if they think we achieved our goal?
sounds good.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that. We did, for sure. And this is the fourth movement of that same symphony, the Italian Symphony by Felix Mendelssohn. And this movement is titled Saltarello, which is a wild uh, Italian dance, usually in a like a 12/8 or a 6/8, very fast kind of tempo. Um, And maybe, and when you want to talk about articulation,
Ooh, yeah, sure. So this one you'll hear when you hear the recorded excerpt. It is super exciting right from the beginning. And
exciting being another word for fast.
maybe a little scary. It's so fun. It's so fun to play this piece, but it is really technically challenging. So again, this is another big two flute excerpt for us, and it's a real tour de force for both players. And you have this, big loud opening. We get everybody going like you're like riding a horse or something, and then we have to do this very controlled, very clean articulated passage. So like I can feel my adrenaline going just talking about it actually. So this rhythm that we have on the flute, people do it different ways. Actually, I don't know if we've talked about this, Ellen. So I mean I go katakataka, katakataka, katakataka. So we say
Yeah,
different syllables. And is that how you do it too?
that's how I do it.
All right. So some people go katakatata or tatakatata. There are lots of different ways, and everybody kind of has to figure out what works for them. But maybe that's why we're so well matched
I
because,
think so. I remember having that conversation with you as we were rehearsing this piece. How are you doing that? And I was pleased to know that you did it the same way because I really didn't want to have to change.
that makes a big difference. So in this one, as opposed to the other excerpt, you can see that our notes are all exactly lined up. So we are in rhythmic unison all the way through, and that is sort of easier in some ways and harder in other ways because we have to be really clean and we have to subdivide like crazy and stay nice and steady. So that's mostly what I'm thinking about when we're doing this one. How about you?
Yeah, trying to keep it nice and light, um, because it's not particularly loud when we start. And of course, if you try and play loud, it does tend to bog down the tonguing too.
Mm-hmm.
So it's good to kind of keep that nice and light. Um, yeah, and just for me, the temptation's always to play a tiny bit behind the beat, so I need to remember not to do that here, and just keep right on top of it because it just motors ahead. Um,
Yes, I hear you. The thing I tend to do in this one is I make the little rests a little bit too big.
sure.
And so then that can make things get a little wonky. Also, trying to phrase the lines still so that it just doesn't sound like an exercise, so that it does actually have a little shape to the lines.
Yes.
It's tricky. It's very challenging, but very fun.
Yes. Well, buckle your seatbelts and have a listen to the very few seconds this takes to get through of the last movement, beginning of the last movement of the Mendelssohn Fourth Symphony. Okay, I'm out of breath already just listening to that. We move on to something completely different. Anne?
Totally. So here we have the fifth movement of Mahler's Second Symphony, the Resurrection Symphony. And boy, this is a completely different style of playing for us than what you've just heard in either movement of the Mendelssohn. What we're really doing here is painting a picture. Um, and creating colors and trying to change the mood of what has come before. You'll hear in the excerpt that there are very loud brass calls that happen, and then there's stillness, and then our bird calls kind of come out of that. It's really quite an amazing bit of music, and technically what we do, if you see on the score there, especially from where the big piccolo solo starts on the second line, Ellen does this almost magical improvisatory sounding um, bit on C sharp. So I'll let her talk about that. And then I have to take over. And so, in terms of playing, like we keep talking about sort of being chameleons in our playing, that is a spot where we're doing that for sure, where I'm going to try to match her pitch and her quality of sound and then grow my own sound out of that and do a little mimicking of what she did before. And that goes back and forth a bit throughout, as you can see on the page. But what are
Yes.
you thinking about on those at the beginning there?
Oh, pitch, 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 pitch. Um, you may or may not know that the C sharp is probably the least stable note on the flute or the piccolo. It's a real wild card. I mean, it's the note that is easiest to bend the pitch, which is a good thing and a bad thing, because it's not a note that just locks in on the instrument. You have to be in total control. It's if you think about the keys on the flute, here's a little technical thing. The keys on the flute, the more keys you put down and cover, the longer the tube is that you are making the pitch, which is why when you put your fingers down, generally the notes get lower. So with the C sharp, every single key is open and every single hole is open on the flute. So you're essentially making a pitch out of a tube that's this long. So it's what makes that C sharp really kind of crazy. And if you're doing it on the piccolo, it makes it about this long. so
Right.
so it can be even a little more hairy. But trying to make that C sharp beautiful, and um, it's nice to have the freedom to be a little improvisatory in this one. Um, Kevin, when we're doing it, you'll see the fermatas everywhere where the music kind of just hangs, and then he'll point, and that means you start and you start and you do your thing, and then he'll direct, bring in the next person, and so on and so forth. And it's a little bit, this one's a little tricky to put together. It definitely needs rehearsing a few times to have everyone comfortable with their entrances and exits and whatnot. Um, but yeah, those C sharps are
A little brutal.
yeah.
Yeah. And I would just chime in with a couple of thoughts about that well, one about Kevin allowing us the freedom to be expressive in those solos is so wonderful. And
Yes.
you'll hear that in the recording, and that's such a lovely thing as a musician and as an artist to be trusted with that by your conductor, that you can express yourself in the way that you think the music should go, and he helps us all kind of find our way with that, which is really great. And the C sharps, the other thing that comes to mind for me is on my flute, actually, and on most flutes, the C sharp that's the one above the octave is kind of flat, and the one that's down in the staff is very sharp. So it's just a note that is a kind of a nightmare for us, but I suspect used purposefully. I mean, I don't know, but I wonder. A little bit like "Afternoon of a Faun," that is our most famous excerpt that starts on C sharp. That it's a note that allows you to really make beautiful colors with it, and be very flexible with it. And so in this one, I think the same thing is true, where you can the sheer flexibility of the note gives you more possibilities, but also makes it hard.
I really like that you said that. It hadn't occurred to me until just now, because it does say, like a bird song, that by using just basically a whistle, when you're playing a C sharp, it's
Right.
kind of like you're not closing keys, there's no coveredness about that note, that it in some ways might be more bird-like.
So true. What a good point.
I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah.
I
It's so nice to talk about music.
know, you can't play it. So,
Right.
um,
Right.
and then what's really special about all this is that after all of this and this incredible moment get that we are setting up for the next the next section as it goes into when the chorus comes in.
It's magical. I have chills just thinking about it, actually. It's really a magical moment.
Yeah. So,
Wow.
well, take a deep breath and enjoy this little excerpt from the Mahler Second Symphony. That
So lovely. I have to say, in preparing to do this with you, and I think this was, thank you for having the brilliant idea of letting us do this and getting us organized to do it. It has been so lovely to hear this music, and it has really, really made me miss everybody and miss the orchestra and miss playing with everyone, and playing for our audiences. It just is, there's no way to replicate that with content. There just isn't.
no,
Um,
it's true.
yeah, and I just, I never thought I would miss carpooling, but I like carpooling, but I miss the drive even. All of it, the people, of course, but the actual music making is,
Yeah.
can't wait to get back.
Yeah, I miss Renato Wendell, our operations manager, yelling on stage, and yeah, missing all the people and
The
the
hall,
audience.
the gorgeous hall that we have that we get to play
Yes,
in.
yes. Do you know when I first got this job many years ago, my teacher from undergrad who had played piccolo in the Philadelphia Orchestra for decades, I told him about the job, and he said, he said that hall. He said we used to love coming to Springfield and playing in that hall.
Oh, how
Yeah.
lovely. Oh,
So,
that's amazing.
which is really nice. Yeah.
That's really
So
nice.
yeah, the hall, I know it has its limitations in some ways, but it is such a beautiful hall to play in and a visually beautiful hall as
Yes.
well.
Yes,
Um, I
absolutely.
miss just sitting in the middle of the orchestra, which we are so lucky where we sit, we're right in the middle, and just having the sound wash over me.
Mm-hmm.
as it's almost like a physical, you know, loss.
Mm-hmm.
Not having,
Absolutely. Absolutely. If you ever get the opportunity to sit on stage while an orchestra plays, do it. Take, definitely get up there. It is so different, and it's different even than, of course, being in a hall with live music is very different than listening to recorded music, but actually being up on the stage is a totally different experience. And I feel like something that everybody should get to experience at some point in their lives.
yeah, and I know, I miss the SSO family. I miss Kevin. I mean, we are so lucky to have a conductor who's so enthusiastic and can share that enthusiasm with us.
Yes, absolutely. And as I said before, who trusts us and
Yep,
brings out the best in us.
yep,
And yeah, absolutely.
yep. And we miss, as we said, we miss you, our audience. And uh, I hope that we are able soon to all meet again and do this wonderful thing that we get to do, and play music for you. And you get to listen to it and you get to give us back your energy from listening to it.
Yes, thank you so much for continuing to support us by watching these. And we really miss you. And we'll be back as soon as we possibly can.
And I can't wait to play with you again, Anne.
Yes, you do. Soon.
All right.
All
See
right.
you soon.
Bye.
Bye.